Hello and welcome to FinextraTV. I'm Liam Xavier and you join us at the Communify Intelligence Experience. With me right now is Holly Mackay, the founder and MD at Boring Money. Holly, lovely to have you with us.
Hi, good to be here.
So let's talk a little bit about pension management. In your research, what do you see at the moment as the main stumbling block towards effective management and investment?
I think what we see, we focus mostly on the self-directed investor, is the enormity of the decision making. It all feels still too much for people. I think one thing that's really key that comes through in our research is the main benefit of saving into a pension, which is that tax relief. People still don't really understand what it actually means. And if we talk about, I did a piece, an interview in the Sun newspaper, and it was really interesting with the features editor recently instead of a personal finance editor. And he wrote about free money and that kind of different way of saying to people, this is why you should bother. So our research tells us that a lot of people are still not getting that message. Also, it just goes into the too hard basket for people because they don't yet fully understand that actually there are things and tools out there that make it pretty easy to get started. So I'd say the sort of main stumbling blocks are people don't understand the benefits, so we need to do a better job of explaining those. But also still it just feels like an insurmountable thing for the average self-directed investor to do. So making sort of bite-sized chunks, giving better information, breaking it down into manageable steps is really vital.
And obviously there is so much to think about, especially for self-directed investors. One thing that's come up a lot more is the fact that we're going to see quite a big transfer of wealth. How do you see the main decisions, the strategic considerations for self-directed investors when it comes to making that transition smooth?
I don't think we're in for a smooth transition. I think this is a really key problem actually for a lot of wealth management firms. If you think about money moving, say from a husband to a wife, we've done a lot of research with women, elderly women, when it comes to what might they do if they get that pension, for example, as part of a broader set of assets. There's a lot of sort of dissatisfaction with sort of older women at the moment about the advice relationship, something that's not quite gelling, something that's not quite working. A lot of that is interpersonal stuff and the communication, how people impart information. So I think there's a real challenge there. It's not a given that that money is going to just automatically flow to the wife and stay. We've also done a lot of work talking to parents of children who are over the age of 65, and we said to them, what do you think your kids are going to do when it comes to inheriting your money? Do you think they're going to stay with the current advice relationship? And fewer than a quarter of parents over the age of 65 we talked to said that they did think that. So I think there's a sort of massive challenge for the wealth management industry, coming both from women who stand to inherit any pension assets, but also the kids sort of later down the line. But of course, I think there's more conversation in the industry now about that intergenerational wealth transfer. But the problem I see coming down the line now that impacts the bottom line now is that movement of assets from typically a husband to a wife.
That's really fascinating, and obviously some of that, you mentioned your data, you mentioned the research, it's all really useful for educating on pensions, and you've said how much that's important. What's your approach, I guess, to finding that data and translating it in a way that's both verified, authentic, but is also just easy to understand and digest?
I think it's that easy to understand and digest piece. Now, there's information, when we talk about education, we tend just to think about the information, the imparting of information. But you need two things to educate. You also, it's not just information, you need to entertain someone. Their brain has to be wired to receive that information. And so this industry is terribly bad at the making it interesting part. In a way, that's why I called my business Boring Money, right? Acknowledging that. So I think we need to go a lot further in thinking about how we can talk to people in bite-sized chunks, how we can make it engaging. Do we think about gamification, shock horror? Some of the things we've heard Communify talk about here today are super interesting. I think the other thing we need to do is get much smarter now at moving into the age of hyper-personalisation, and this one-size-fits-all approach to communication doesn't work. It would be like me having this interview with you now and sitting here talking to you like that. You know, we are not very good in this industry at making our clients feel that we see them, we acknowledge them, and we're making our comments to them relevant to them and personalised. So I think, you know, for me that is the next frontier to sort of fight on when it comes to good education, is to think about how we make it more engaging and entertaining, dare I say, but also how we personalise it so that people feel there's a real connection there and we're not just spewing out the same PDF to thousands of people in our databases.
Some fascinating insights there, and I think the entertainment piece is 100% true. So really interesting to see if that materialises. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.